Hey, it's Zim, and should you play Legend of Keepers? Now, this is a game or was in early access. It actually now just got its full release. It's currently available on sale for $17.99 with a normal sale or normal price of $19.99. This game I've played throughout its early access lifespan. It's kind of seen some changes here and there, including receiving a campaign for these characters that we see on screen. But just kind of a quick overview real quick is Legend of the Keepers is very similar to Dungeon Lords or Dungeon Masters or Dungeon game where you are playing the villain, setting up dungeons to kill the heroes who are trying to come and get treasure from you and things like that. So you are essentially one of these three characters on the screen here. Each one has a different play style, and then you are building dungeons to essentially prove your worth to the company that's hiring you. But we're going to head and jump into a game. We're going to actually start a new campaign for this, because I kind of wanted to show you some stuff.
Torture, it's a passion.
So the first thing you'll notice is you can only play the slave holder, the centaur-looking guy. To unlock these, you're going to have to reach level 5 with slave holder,
So many ideas!
or reach level 6 with the enchantress. Each one of these are going to play differently, which gives it some additional lifespan. But the overall feel of the game is very similar. I don't feel like you should need these characters behind these level locks. I don't feel like the slave holder is easier necessarily than the enchantress, although I do feel like the engineer is probably the hardest character to get
So many ideas!
to get a good run with, I guess.
Torture, it's a passion.
Now, each character also has their own talent tree. You unlock talent points. You start with 1, and then these will give you essentially additional unlocks throughout the game. So this might unlock additional monsters for your starting pool. This might just buff your character. Just all sorts of different things. And this deals additional morale damage. And we'll go over that in a second. But so when this game first came out, there was no campaign map. So you just essentially did different runs. This is now different. So you actually go through essentially 5 chapters, each one progressively with different monsters to start with and different traps. Progressively harder in some ways, but if you know the game very well, it's not as hard. So it's hard for me to like tell you how much of a learning curve there is, because I don't feel like there is one, but there might be for certain players. Then you unlock the Ascension mode and Endless mode, which allows you to just keep playing with those characters. This game's great to just play. You can complete one of these missions in about an hour, hour and a half. And you can probably put down the game very easily and pick it up very easily. And that's what I like about it. The problem is you can save during mid-campaigns, but if you walk away from it a mid-campaign and then you come back a week later, you might not know what you were doing, and that can cause problems. You definitely want to probably finish a campaign if you're going to sit down for one. It's not something I'd say, oh, like save and come back a week later and you'll be fine, because you might be going a morale build, and then you come back and go, I have no clue what I'm doing, and then you get trashed by some adventurers because you're not going the strategy you originally built. But we're going to jump in right now.
Let's get to work.
Welcome to the company, Mog. I am delighted to have you with us. We'll need your fabled management techniques. We're putting you in charge of a little team in the Old Empire, a region overrun by humans. It's up to you to gather the monsters in the area and teach them how to defend themselves. Turn them into great employees, ready to give their lives multiple times for the company.
So as you can see, the game is fully voice acted, which is awesome. It's definitely a nice touch. You are essentially the overlord being hired by this company, and you're trying to prove your worth throughout each of these campaigns. You'll get moved to different positions and better positions, ideally. We're going to hit continue, and it's going to throw you right in with an adventurer's mod. And so this is kind of the core of the game. Adventurers will come, and then we get to see the setup of our lair, and then we'll deal with these. Now, these lairs are always randomly generated. You will always have 2 rooms for monsters, 2 trap rooms, your spell room, and where you're located. However, the order of how these will show up is always going to be different, even if you're playing on this same style of map. We also can hover over the heroes. As we can see, we have a novice, a scout, and a minstrel. Now, each of these characters, just like your monsters, will have strengths and weaknesses. So the novice, for example, is weak to fire, stronger against ice, weak to physical, stronger against nature, and weak to air. It'll also show us the attack that he's going to be able to do and any bonus skills he has. So right now we can see 35 ice damage to our monster in front. It'll apply Frostbite 2 if they are 50% less life. He also can remove the penalty with most stacks applied from all heroes at the start of his turn once per run. She's going to deal 40 physical damage to the back and dodges the first trap she'll encounter. So if I have a trap that only targets her, it's a waste. But if it's a group trap and would hit all 3, she'll still avoid it, but at least you're still hitting other people. And then he's going to deal nature damage to all your monsters and applies dodge 1 to the hero with the lowest life percent at the start of each fight, which means they'll automatically miss. So we have a trap here. Rallying Horn will deal some morale damage to them and also give Enrage to our group of monsters. What's nice is it'll tell you what everything does. So in the bottom of that, it says damage and morale dealt increased by 30%. Let's see, Enrage 3. That also means how many turns it's going to last for. Bone Catapult is just doing morale damage and gives demoralized status, which is a more negative morale, essentially. And Circular Star is going to do physical damage and cause bleed. We are probably going to Rallying Horn and hit confirm. And we can set up our monsters. Now we know he's doing ice in the front, and we're taking physical to the back, and everyone's getting hit by nature. So we want someone with physical resistance in the back and ice resistance in the front. So he's a good front guy. He's a good back guy. We'll put him in the middle. Now, once you start unlocking more and more monsters, you actually will start developing combos and cool strategies. But for now, you're often just playing around their damage types. Unfortunately, this is kind of a problem with this game, is that like you can have some really cool combos, but you never know what adventurers you're going to encounter. Even as I'll show you later, you get to choose the difficulty of the adventurers. You don't know what their resistances are going to be, so you could build a really cool frost build and then encounter 3 adventurers who are all resistant to frost and who are going to really shut you down, and that sucks. So skips over the spell because we will activate a spell when we get there. And our next set of monsters, he's good with frost, so of course we'll put him in the front. He's good against physical, put him in the back, and he'll go in the middle. Next set of traps, we're gonna hit him with the circular saw because hopefully they'll be dead by then, and then we're just hanging out over there. And so in a sense, we get to see certain things play out. Now, this is turn-based, and so there's a bard activating. All creatures have a speed rating that's down here with the arrows. Morale, which I'll get to later. Health is how much health is before they die, and power is how much damage they're going to be able to add to their strength. And that's the same for heroes as well. So, looks like this is our tree, essentially how fast and what order things are going to go in, and we get to choose what attacks we want to do. Now I can do a poison dagger to the front. It's going to deal nature damage and apply poison, and if we see, it will show me where the damage is hitting on the hero's bar, which is really nice. So on the novice here, poison dagger is showing that it'll deal a pretty decent portion. Or we can do goblin trick, but because the bard has his dodge on him right now, he won't actually take any damage. So we'll choose poison dagger. And bard will get a go, dealing nature damage to everyone. Nice little rat swarm there. The animations, the art style, really cool. The dungeon backgrounds that you'll see, and there's different ones, are also really nicely done. It's a really well-developed game. It's a lot of fun, but it definitely can get old after a while. We're going to do a Toxic Volley. And you see his dodge pop. Alright, so this is looking like it'll do morale damage to everyone. And as you can see, it affects everyone's morale bar. Or we can just do a straight cleaver. And just cleave him down. Our goblin, unfortunately, is going to die from the next attack. But I think we're just going to keep wailing on the novice here. The audio for the game is also great. It's not too much diversity in the soundtrack, but the attacks themselves, all of them have like nice sounding sort of things for their animations. Like, none of them sound odd or off. Kind of like in Loop Hero, I felt like there's some noises that the animations do that just felt weird. Also, when heroes die, it'll affect the party's morale. But like every like animation has a sound that not only sounds good but fits its animation, which I really appreciate. Looks like these wave of monsters are just about dead. She should be able to finish them off. And we move forward. So spell room, now I get to choose what spell I want to do. I can Intimidate to do more morale damage. I can hit Burning Whip, that's only going to hit the first hero and deal some fire damage and a burn. Not bad at all. Or I can Enrage my next group of monsters. Also really good. I think we're going to do Burning Whip though. And there's that. And because of the Bard, she gets a free dodge, essentially. Alrighty, and now we got a mage going here. And that's going to hit the back line, or we can try to demoralize, but I think Fireball's a good choice here. And that's going to kill him, so that's perfect. Which means she's going to dodge this cleave here. It looks like we have conquered our first set of heroes. Now these heroes, like I said, you'll eventually get to choose the difficulty, and you'll be presented with a couple different options. And then near the end of each campaign mission, you'll be presented with no options, and they're just like advanced champions. So essentially, like they're level 6 max self. And those champions are very nasty and something you want to always prepare for. That's why you might want to choose to take on harder adventures to get better rewards so that you can eventually be able to take on those champions. We're going to take this skeleton soldier here. So, when your monsters die, we are the bad guys, and so we bring them back to life, because that's what we do. We want them to keep fighting for us. Now, what happens is they suffer morale or motivation. So as we can see, Ulna, Grogmar, and Stuzbaz have all lost 2 morale. It's because when they're in the afterlife, they're happy. They don't want to leave, and then we yank them back to reality, and they have to suffer more. And probably die a lot more because, let's be real, adventures can be tough. So, we have to worry about morale. And up in the right-hand corner here, we get a look at our employees. Now, these options are only available for the first room. These options are only available for the second room. You can switch them around, but if I put, let's say, all of my guys here, and I had someone, and we'll talk about the garrison in a second, but nothing in room 2, that means I'd have no options for room 2. Room 2 would go empty. So you do have to be careful and plan around. But, like I said earlier, it can be pretty hard to do that. I'm going to put Brugger over here, actually, because we're going to send these guys. We just don't have any heroes right now. We'll give Stubaz the garrison. But, like I said, it's pretty hard to do so because of the heroes and not knowing exactly what you're going to encounter. So essentially, you're trying to build these cool synergies and monster engines, and you gotta hope that the adventures coming to you aren't going to be able to just completely shut that down. So it's kind of a risk-reward system, but I feel like there might be a better way to do it. Otherwise, sometimes you do feel like, oh man, I got this really cool fire damage thing that I've worked super hard to work, and then all these 3 heroes show up and they're all resistant to fire, and some that maybe even reflect fire, and then you're like, oh, I can't do anything. Cool. And it just feels bad, and you just get walloped. Now, once these guys lose morale, you can put them in the garrison. This essentially means you're not going to use them, which gives them morale back. And each different unit can generate more morale. There's also other things that'll generate morale, and that's during the second part of the game. We can also look at our traps. Traps are universal. You don't have to assign one trap to a room and another trap to another room. They're all just kind of however you want to deploy them. However, you only have a maximum of 6 slots for traps. But let's go back to the main screen. So this is the second part of the game, and this is essentially your business side. You're working for the company, so you are able to have random events. Most of the time, these are good. There are a couple that are bad. When I first started with this game in early access, almost all of them were not great, and so you never chose it. Now there is actually a reason to, and usually it's a safe reason to. You have Trainer. This is going to upgrade the level of your monsters. They can gain new abilities, new stats, and are just generally better. You're going to want to do that because every round of adventurers coming through are going to get stronger and stronger. So in that first wave, they're level 1s. Even if we chose a lower strength adventuring group, eventually they're going to be level 3s or level 4s, even if they're showing as the weaker of the choices. Engineers are going to be able to upgrade traps. You can also purchase new traps through the merchant. We start off with some gold here. We're going to want to buy some monsters, so I think I'm going to hold off until week 4 for that merchant down there. So we're going to do the event. So the event is random, gives you a little flavor text here, so the garbage chute. And then you can essentially refuse. Sometimes you can't, depending on the event. In this case, we can refuse, or we can gain 1 morale for all our guys at the cost of 50 gold. Not really necessary, so I'm just going to refuse. Keep my gold. Therapists, these guys, this event will also increase the morale of all your characters, which is super helpful. Or we can choose an event, but we'll take the therapist, why not? And so we can gain +1 morale for everyone, +2 if we have 20 tiers. Tiers are generated from demoralizing most of the time. There are other ways in like certain random events and other things that can generate tiers, but the main way to get tiers is by making the heroes or adventurers invading demoralize, and you defeat them that way. If you kill them, you gain blood. Blood is another resource. Both of these resources are good and often very limited, so just kind of keep that in mind. I'm just going to think. We'll just take the one. It's fine. Like I said, we want to do this merchant here. And so we can buy one of these. This is a trap. These are 2 monster choices. We can choose not to buy anything by leaving the buy option, and then we can refresh it by paying 20 gold. I think we're going to take this skeleton. Both are pretty good. Maybe we'll buy both. Have the gold for it. Why not? Renew. See what we got here. Boarman's pretty good. Pile of bones. This is a morale one. So if we want to do like a morale build, we definitely can. And so you kind of want to stack different traps and different debuffs with your monsters that do a lot of morale damage. Let's take the pile of bones. Why not? However, there are certain heroes that reduce your morale damage to their entire party. There are certain heroes that cannot be affected by morale damage by certain things. And because you don't know what adventures you're getting, if you build entirely towards demoralizing, you might just end up getting super hurt by it. Once again, it's kind of a frustration with this game. I love this game for a lot of reasons, but that one specifically can be super frustrating. But we'll leave the shop here. And we get our next set of adventurers. So if we hover over, it shows our difficulty between 1 to 5 swords. 1 being the lowest, 5 being the strongest. At 1 sword, we're probably looking at adventurers at level 1 to 2. Right now, however, if we're later on in this year, each mission, or each campaign mission, I should say, lasts for essentially 45 to 54 weeks, depending on what mission you're on. It used to be that you just played 2 years before they added these missions, and then obviously endless mode, you just keep going. Disaster is a room in the dungeon that will essentially act like another spell. It does some effect. You get it between 3 choices. Resting room is actually good for the adventurers. It often will remove debuffs from them. Reward is what we're going to get at the end, which is, in this case, another monster and some gold. Obviously, the harder choices you have, if it's harder, you're going to get better rewards. But we're going to get this adventure. Alrighty. And so, we are presented with 2 level 1s and a level 2. A Priestess, Apprentice, and an Exile. 45 air damage to the front, 28 fire damage to the front, and 49 air damage to the back. So, air resistance is good here. They're going to give morale. They're going to just damage our lowest ice resist monster. And she gets to replace one of her penalties with the bonus once. So it's just something to keep in mind. So we kind of want ice because of this apprentice. And looking at this, we're definitely going to want some air resist in the back and front. Unfortunately, you got decent air resist, so we'll put you in the, let's see, 45 to the front, 49 to the back. We'll put you in the back. And you have air resist. Unfortunately, it's fine, I guess. Get some traps here. Now, I don't know if we're going to be able to demoralize these, really. Especially because he's going to heal back some morale. Still. Rallying Horn's not bad. We want a bone catapult. That's going to last for 2 turns, so by the time they get there, it's done. So that won't work. Alright, yeah. Rallying Horn. Spell room. Another trap room. We'll hit him with circular saw. Like I said, I love the detail in the back rooms here. You got people hanging up, you got a human roasting on fire. It's perfectly villainous. Like, the themes here are amazing. But I definitely feel like the gameplay could evolve a little bit. It is simplistic in its current state. And like I said, this is an official full release. This is where they want the game to be. I'd also like to see more masters or overlords, because currently we only have the 3, and I think that there's definitely room for more interesting ones to be developed and put out. I don't know if they have plans for DLC. We'll see. Let's see here. I need to set up this room now. Back. How are they against fire? They are not that bad against fire. Well, we'll try it.
Prepare to die.
Now, so you might be asking, how do you fail? And you fail based on if your master dies during this adventure incursion. So right now my master has 1200 health, 80 power, and 90 speed with some stats and his abilities. If he were to die by these adventurers, which isn't likely early on, but more likely near the end, your campaign mission is over. You failed. In this case, let's see. Do some frostbite, I think. Toxic volley going. Like I said, the animations, the audio accompanying them, all just amazing for this game. I really do like it. I just wish that there was a little bit more complexity to the gameplay. Because this cycle that you've seen now, adventurers, build up, adventurers, is the entire game. Let's see. Poison arrow. Doesn't look like we're gonna survive into the round here. Alrighty. Might be that we want to enrage our monsters. Seems like a good idea. You'll also notice up the top here these glowing skulls. That means that these monsters have been enraged by that spell, so it is a nice little touch. Although maybe not necessary. As you can see, these heroes are a lot faster than my monsters, so we're going last here. Just finish these guys up. Oh, our fire went out from our frost breath. I didn't notice that. That's a really cool touch. So yeah, like there are also things that apparently will affect the background. That's something new to me. And maybe it's done it before, but I've never noticed that. All right, so we have defeated them, and now we get a new monster choice. He's pretty cool. Never seen this one. Seems solid. Take him. Anyway, so this is the core of the game, and you just keep going through these weeks, trying to get stronger, and then eventually complete the mission and move on to the next mission and move on to the next mission. As these guys level up, you'll unlock the other heroes. Sorry, villains or overlords. And overall, I think the game is a lot of fun. I think that it is definitely something that people should check out. It's easy to pick up and put down. Like I said, each of these missions maybe takes an hour, hour and a half at most, depending on how quick you are in making decisions and how familiar you are with the game, obviously. But I think the average is probably about an hour. I think there's a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of potential to expand with this game that I'd really like to see. I would like to see some more development towards the mechanics of the game, and maybe some changes towards how the adventurers will encounter, instead of just these random, like I said, you get to hover over like the difficulty rating of those adventures. I wish it would show us like what resistance is majority, because that would also affect choices, right? If I'm doing a fire build, I'm not going to want to choose the adventuring group that has a ton of fire resistance. I'm going to want to choose the adventuring group that has less, and so if that means they're harder, I might be willing to make that choice because my monsters are going to hit harder, instead of this kind of weird dance where oftentimes you might get screwed by what resistances these adventurers have, and then you're just playing around what attacks they're doing because your engine won't function. And there is a definite problem with that game, with that style of gameplay, where it becomes less about interesting decision making and more about looking and aligning numbers, and that is less fun. That is the downside to this game. But for $17.99 or $19.99 for its regular price, I think it's definitely a game worth checking out. There's a ton of heart in this game. I love the theme. I love the aesthetic. They've done an amazing job with the graphics and audio. It's fully voice acted, which is amazing. And then obviously just what I noticed recently, which is certain moves actually will change the backgrounds, which is really cool too. It's a really nice touch. There's a lot of really nice touches to this game that I think definitely makes it worth checking out. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.